What exactly is sustainability? Is it simply giving up what we consider all the good stuff, such as cars or vacations or tropical fruits? Well, yes and no. Sustainability, as has been pointed out to me many times during my research, is about more than just doing without. The original modern definition of sustainability is traced back to the 1987 United Nations Brundtland Commission, which defines sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. But this definition exists at a much larger scale than an individual can hope to accomplish. At an individual level, the definition really becomes more specific to that individual. That is to say, within the framework of the overall definition by the UN, our personal definition is specific to each of us. Personal sustainability does not have a ready definition as the one provided by the Brundtland Commission. A quick Google search turns up dozens of different definitions of personal sustainability, each, however, equally valid. Therefore, the definition of personal sustainability really becomes more of a personal creed. Or, said another way, we each define what being sustainable is for each of us. We have to remember that each of us is in a different place, and what works for some of us does not work for others. For example, if you already don't drive very much, getting a hybrid car does not make sense. What I have learned is that an important change is the mindset, and that is the first step to a sustainable path. Over the course of this class, I have interviewed and talked to a number of individuals about personal sustainability. These individuals include two respected authors, a modern-day Thoreau, and several of my classmates. While each had a slightly different take on what personal sustainability was, one consistent theme was that there was a need to act as part of a personal, moral, and ethical need or imperative. Sustainability, then, is about more than just doing without. It is about more than just being green. It is about doing what we know to be right for us and for the world around us. David Wan, the author of The New Normal, An Agenda for Living Responsibly, calls this ethic of survival biospirituality, one that respects all aspects of the natural environment while realizing that we are just one part of the whole. David Wan is a local writer, speaker, and filmmaker who is passionate for us as a society developing a more sustainable lifestyle. He has spent over the last 25 years exploring and promoting ways for us to make our lives less destructive to our environment and making life more affordable and satisfying to the individual. Dave has a lot of suggestions on how to be more sustainable, from the small to the large, carrying a cloth bag to the grocery store, or carpooling and even more. But he says we need to recognize that we will do unsustainable things sometimes, and the best we can do is to try to offset them. As Dave said in his interview, even with things you are not doing, the conscious idea to change the future is with merit. The effort we as a society are trying to make is to change how we approach the world and what we take from it. This has to begin with a change in our mindset. Like with any addiction, and in this case the addiction is overconsumption, we first have to admit that we have a problem. And speaking of problems, I still have to deal with my 6.4 Earths. The footprint calculator I use can be found at www.footprintnetwork.org. I recommend each of you give it a try and see what your footprint comes out to be. Some of the things I learned from my research of the calculator are: the calculations are based on both your choices, i.e., size of house, size of the apartment, or size of condominium which you live in. Driving or carpooling and similar choices all affect the calculation. And your location, meaning that because we live in the United States, our footprint is going to be higher because of the infrastructure, the roads and buildings, etc., and the products that our companies produce. A large part of the reason for the higher number of the United States is the carbon footprint associated with our development. From what I could see, the lowest score I could get living in the United States was about 3.1. But the value of the calculator is really in the ability to see how the changes you make reflect your number. Things like adding recycling, carpooling, buying local can reduce the number of Earths it takes to support you. When I put in different scenarios, I was able to reduce my footprint to 5.1 without much effort on my part, and with a little more effort, I got it down to 4.7. While that sounds like a lot still, and it is, you need to remember that the lowest I got by trying to make all the right choices was 3.1. So, 4.7 is comparably better than my original 6.4. The late Nobel laureate Henry Kendall once said, "Environmental problems at root are human, not scientific or technical. I take this to mean that we may not know the full scientific ramifications of the climate patterns of the Earth, or the full amount of minerals and elements we have been given to mine. We do know that these things are changing in terms of climate, and are limited in terms of resources. We know enough to be able to see the consequences of our actions and act to mitigate. Therefore, it is human decisions that will bring about change. Small changes, large changes. But the point is, make changes. Because the individual cannot change without the society changing, and the society cannot change without the individual changing. While this may sound like a chicken and egg conundrum, it really doesn't matter which comes first. All that matters is that change happens.